Hi guys, this is Raquel Jordan and I am following up with a little video tutorial with all of the highlights from the interview that I did with Dr. Kim as promised. So the first thing I wanted to really highlight in this video is the difference between being in the red zone versus being in a place where you're ready to do some rehab and move your body. I think one of the most important things that she said as far as the red zone goes is that your body shouldn't be in chronic pain. If it is in chronic pain, you are definitely in the red zone. And the first thing you want to do is you want to put ice on your lower back or wherever you're feeling the pain. She recommended that you lay on your back and you slide the ice underneath your back while you're laying down, knees bent. That is because the ice, apparently the coldness can seep in between the little vertebra and get in there a little better. So that would be the first recommendation. You're feeling a lot of pain, you threw out your back, it's pretty intense, put ice on it immediately. And in the email here that's attached, it'll give you more of a detailed prescription of how often, and 20 minutes I believe it is, 2 to 3 times a day, and she recommended to ice right before you go to bed. The second thing that she mentioned to keep track of, should you be in the red zone, is this tightness that you might feel in your body if you have pulled a muscle severely, if you've thrown your back out. There tends to be a lot of tightness there, and a lot of people think that that's your body, oh, I gotta massage that muscle, or I've gotta move it or work it out. And in actuality, that's kind of the last line of defense from what we understand, because all of the stabilizing muscles now are traumatized, they're offline, which means this is your final warning. Please stop moving. So tightness or sharp, intense pain, chronic, no movement, icing, and ideally you're icing on your back with your knees bent and your feet on the floor. The third thing I want to cover when we do hurt our backs is to diagnose whether the pain is amplified when you are in a back bend or an extension in the spine. For most people, this tends to be the case. When you're back bending, you have a lot of compression in your lumbar spine. So oftentimes when you hurt your back, this doesn't feel good. That being said, there are some of you that it would be the shape that you prefer. So just noting, okay, does my back feel better when I'm in a back bend? Do I feel better when I'm in a forward fold? If you're in a forward fold, your body prefers flexion of the spine. And with flexion in the spine, it's kind of like the vertebrae are extending or pulling apart, which is creating more space ultimately in your body. I'm going to go over some postures, 2 postures to do in restorative when you are in chronic pain, because obviously, like I said before, you don't want to be moving at all. So I'm going to go through two tests, is what she said, or something like that. 2 shapes you can go into when you hurt your back to see which you prefer. And then based on what you prefer, you're going to choose one of the 2 restorative postures that I'm about to take you into. So you're going to come onto your mat. I'm going to tilt this a little bit. And you'll want to grab a pillow or a bolster if you have it. Place it off to the side, and then a block if you have a block. If you don't have a block, you can take a stack of hardback books, and that should work. Or a really, really firm pillow, but really I would try to invest in a bolster, especially since we're all staying at home. So the first test that she had mentioned was back bending, and she basically wants you to get into Sphinx pose, which all of you yogis know what that is. It's bringing the elbows underneath your shoulders and then slowly letting your hips sink, and you're kind of in this position. Now, big toes touching, heels apart, so this to the hips or the femur bones, the thigh bones are in neutral. So this doesn't feel bad in my body, but I didn't injure it. I remember when I did, this really hurt for me. You can see where the compression would be in the lower back. Second would be testing it out, just dropping your hips back towards your heels, a soft child's pose. And in this one, you don't have to go into the full Monty. You can bring the elbows down and just check it out like this. Now, if this feels really good for you, which tends to be the case for most people, then you actually prefer your body to be in what they call a forward fold, or I believe it is, flexion is what she said. I always forget the two. So if you prefer flexion, you're gonna grab your bolster or your pillow. You're gonna place it in the middle of your mat. You're gonna come into tabletop, have the bolster right underneath your stomach. This is really important, big toes touching heels apart. You can see my feet, toes are touching, heels are apart. I'm gonna lower down onto the pillow, and I'm gonna have the pillow underneath the soft part of my abdomen so that my sitting bones, my hips can kind of drop back on the back end of the bolster. And so ideally, this shape is ultimately trying to bring your spine back into neutral position. So bending your elbows wide, you're gonna stack your hands and just let your forehead rest on your hands. I'm gonna wiggle a little bit forward, adjusting myself so my ribs are mostly off of the bolster. And then a very, very key component in healing, in the healing process in general, is your breath. So you just take a moment, let your body settle. Really try to let your head get heavy, shoulders heavy, legs heavy. And initially, you might feel some resistance in your stomach, especially if this is new to you or you have some challenges in your digestive system. You want to try to soften the abdomen as much as you can and allow that bolster to sink into the pit of your stomach. And then you're going to focus on taking slow, deliberate breaths in to your lower back and envision the lower back inflating like a balloon. You're going to hold at the top of the inhale, and then very gently as you exhale it out, I want you to start to imagine your sitting bones dripping off the bolster and onto the floor, shoulders melting wide. So we'll do that together with the focus on your lower back. You'll empty the breath out. You'll take a deep breath in for 4, 2, 3, 4. And you want to hold it here and really envision the lower back expanding like a balloon, creating space. And then very gently, you can open your mouth and gently exhale it out. Let the body melt to the floor a little bit more. And then again, inhale for 4, 2, 3, 4, hold. And gently release. Inhale 4, 2, 3, 4, hold, and release. We'll take one more together. Inhale for 4, 2, 3, 4, hold, and let it go. You can come back slowly to an inhale for 4. And very gently exhale for 4. And because I want this video to be pretty short and concise, I'm going to slowly come out of this posture now. But I will say that if your back is really killing you, better to lay in this posture for 10 minutes minimum. 10 minutes. And just focus on the breath. Focus on healing your body, breath by breath. If you want to stay in it longer, sometimes I'll put a little interview on, a podcast, and I'll just chill here for a little bit. Just let my body do its thing as I take my deep breaths into my lower back. You'll notice after 10 minutes of doing this, you might feel like you were transported into another place and time. So now, coming out of it is just as important as going into it. So you'll bring your hands right underneath your shoulders, and without straining or using the muscles in your back, you're going to push your hands into the floor, and you're going to go right into a very soft child's pose for a moment with your elbows right underneath your shoulders. Are you still there? There you are. Okay. I was like, no. So you're going to come out of it. I couldn't really see because it blonked out, but you're going to come out of it and you're going to come into a soft child's pose, just like you did before. Okay. Next pose we're going to take. I'm actually going to leave my bolster there because if you have a bolster at home, you can use it. I preferred, you can test it out yourself for your back. Some people might like the softer surface. Some people might like the harder surface. So let's just check out your options. I remember when I injured my lower back, I did it 2 times for 2 different reasons. When I was using this shape to heal, the block helped because I needed that structure and that stability in my body because I was hypermobile. So the first one is just lifting your hips if you prefer that back bending shape, and then bring your hips down. And you can let your tailbone drop towards the floor. So you feel that sway in your back, just drop the knees together, and then you can bend your elbows, grab a hold of opposite elbows. This is one option, maybe rocking over to the right and then rocking over to the left. This feels amazing. This is definitely a pose where you can go back into that slow inhale for 4, hold, and then exhale gently for 4. We'll just take 2 breaths in this shape, and then we'll try with the block as well. So taking a deep breath in for 4, 2, 3, 4, hold, and then exhale. One more time. Inhale 4, 2, 3, 4, hold, and then exhale. Now, if you want to keep going with that, you can. I'm going to continue for the timing, but you can continue. Just note, about halfway through, you want to switch the forearm that's on top, just so the arms and the shoulders feel balanced. Now, I'm going to take you into the second, or I'd say the last version, if you prefer the block. You're sliding the block right underneath your sacrum, which is correspondent to being right underneath where the frontal hip bones are. Your tailbone is also supported. You don't really feel a pinching in your lower back. And if you do, you're going to come down lower, or you're going to use a bolster instead. So you're welcome to stay in this position in supported bridge pose is what we call it. And then just test it out. Sometimes legs can go up. This also feels like, I don't know, it feels kind of neutral. It's not quite a forward fold and it's not quite a back bend. But sometimes just letting the legs drop back into their hip sockets can feel also pretty incredible. So you can try both of these. And you'll do the same thing with the breath work. Same thing. Inhaling for 4. Feel that space wherever you're looking to heal your body. Increase. And then very gently as you exhale, focus on letting the parts of your body that are touching the floor just melt into the ground. You'll take that a few times, maybe even up to 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And then you can bend your knees gently. And I want you to try not to strain in your back. So that means lowering one foot down at a time. And then when you come out of this, you'll lift your hips gently and very, very flat back. Rather than one vertebra at a time, just try to flat back it. And hands can come to the heart. And this is also the position you're in when you want to ice. So you'll just lift your hips and put the ice right underneath your back where you need it. Okay, so those are the 2 exercises to do to determine whether you prefer your back to be an extension or flexion, and how do you rehab it immediately while you're icing and you can't really move for instant relief, I should say. Those are the two poses. And in the red zone, I gave you an email of certain practices that could be absolutely supportive and beneficial to your healing process. One of those is Yoga Nidra. Highly, highly, highly recommend Yoga Nidra because there's such a strong connection between the mind and the body. And the more relaxed you can be in the nervous system and the more positive messaging you can be sending to your body, the quicker it's going to heal. Yoga Nidra. So look it up if you don't know it. I'm going to also send a link with a guided Yoga Nidra practice to you in this email. And then I would love to send you another one specifically for the lower back. So we'll see if I can get to that too in the next week or two. So the next phase of the back is when you are out of the red zone, you're no longer in chronic pain, and you're ready to start doing stuff to get back to a place where you're in full range of motion. The first thing you need to do is to determine whether your injury was caused by the fact that you had a lack of flexibility or mobility, or whether your injury occurred because you're hypermobile and you actually weren't stable when you were doing whatever it was you were doing. Most people, it tends to be hypermobility for them, and they lack that stabilization that they need to support themselves. Let me give you an example. You're going to pick something up and you bend over. Instead of getting into your knees and using your glutes and using your core to stabilize you as you pick up that item, you end up breaking, or not breaking, but hopefully, but pulling out your back muscles. Another common one in yoga is when you are twisting, and this one happened to me. It's when you have an SI joint injury. It's really common in yoga. Utkatasana, classic case, hands come to the heart, and you twist to the right. This is why yoga teachers tell you to look at your knees, make sure they're parallel. Because when the one knee comes forward and another knee goes back, that's letting us know that your stabilization muscles, your pelvic floor, and your glutes and your hips are not holding you in place. And we really want that to stabilize, because then the hips start to torque to overcompensate for the lack of stability in your body. So I'm going to go through two exercises, one for working stability and one for trying to increase flexibility. And then I'm also going to review with you guys, once I get back on my mat, a little test that Dr. Kim mentioned to see if it's actually a lack of flexibility in your case. What else do I want to say before I drop on my mat? We already mentioned breath being really essential in your healing process. And based on your the root cause of your injury, you're going to gear towards different practices that's also listed in your email. Perfect example, if I have hypermobility in my body and I'm working on stabilizing, then I'm going to want to gear more towards an Iyengar practice, something that's really structured, that's really focusing on alignment and paying attention to detail. I think in general, actually, Iyengar is phenomenal for healing injuries. So let's jump into it. I might even throw some extra exercises in here just because I had the same issue and it really sucked. So let's first do the test to see if you are if you're lacking flexibility. So you're going to lay on your back, and this is basically Supta Padangustasana. We do this in yoga all the time, lowering the left leg. Just try lifting your right leg up. Obviously, you can see I can bring my leg all the way up to my hip, and my leg is straight, and it's really not pulling on my lower back at all. I tend to not have the issue of having a tight body causing my injuries. Mine is more lack of stabilization. Those of you who have tightness, this knee is probably bending heavily, maybe even shaking, and you can feel the pull all the way up in your back. This is telling you that you need to practice yin like there's no tomorrow. That's long holds and deep stretches. And don't forget to incorporate your breath. Okay, so now we're going to go into the stabilizing. Exercises first, stabilizing exercises first, since it tends to be the most common root cause of injury, and then we'll do a little bit of working mobility. So we'll take a block, we'll place it between the knees. This is what Dr. Kim had mentioned. Hands can go to the tops of the thighs. I'll show you one more thing that's really great for releasing the back. Push into your legs like this. Push into your thigh bones. And then you're going to try to squeeze the block. And it's almost like you're releasing, not pressing, but releasing your lower back a little to the floor. And just take a couple breaths. And then go ahead and release that. So what Dr. Kim was having you do was squeeze the block between your knees, and see if you can feel as you squeeze the block between your knees, the pelvic floor muscles are turning on, and you can feel those pelvic floor muscles all the way right underneath the belly button, she said. And at first, honestly, a lot of us, including myself, I don't feel my muscles activating right below my belly button. But I will just keep doing this. You're going to squeeze on the exhale, and then on the inhale, try to release a little bit. And then again, exhale, squeeze. Now be mindful of not taking that work and moving it into your butt muscles, into your glutes. And then inhale, release. And again, exhale, squeeze. And then release. Exhale, squeeze. Inhale, release. 2 more times with me. Exhale, squeeze. Inhale, release. Exhale, squeeze. Inhale, release. Okay, this time squeeze and hold. And just start to visualize, even if it doesn't, you can't feel it yet. Visualize those muscles underneath the belly button, really just turning on, toning a little bit, the fire, and connecting to that block. And then you can go ahead and release. So we're going to roll off to one side, and I'm going to gently have you press up to sit. You're going to come into tabletop. This is another great exercise for working your stabilization muscles. So the muscles we were just working, obviously, were from the pelvic floor and working the adductor muscles, which are the muscles that your legs or whatever you're doing, you're bringing everything in towards you. You're bringing everything towards your midline. We also want to work the pelvic floor muscles by working the abductor muscles, the muscles that are moving away from the body. And you can always remember those muscles when you think of abduction, you think of somebody taking something away. That's how I remembered that, the difference between the two. So you'll bring your knees right underneath your hips. I've done this with you many, many times. There's a reason for that. You're going to step the right foot back. Now this is key. Make sure your left knee is underneath your left hip and your left wrist is either right underneath your left shoulder or slightly forward if you want a bigger base. You're going to spin your back heel down, and you want to align your feet similar to what you would do for Warrior 2. So that means my back arch is aligning with my left big toes. And now you can see my left hip is jutting out a little bit. What I want to try to do is I want to try to root into the inseam of my left kneecap and really elongate from the inner groin. So I'm trying to hug this outer left hip in underneath my body and really focus on lengthening my tailbone towards my right heel. That's my extended leg. Okay, from here, just take your right arm up, and you can stay here breathing, finding that inhale for 4, exhale for 4. I remember when I had injured myself and I was trying to rehabilitate, I was shaking so much because those muscles had been traumatized, were offline, that when I finally started doing this work, it was intense for me. So you're going to lift your top leg when you feel ready, and you might start to tremor a little bit, and that's okay. Just keep focusing on rooting into the inseam of the bottom knee and hugging that outer left hip in. Still breathing, inhaling for 4 and exhaling for 4. Try to hold it for 4 cycles of breath. Now you're going to lower your back foot down first, and then lower your other hand down, and then up to you. You can either sit back on your hips for a moment, or you can come into a soft child's pose, and then when you're ready, you're just going to go on to the other side. Same thing, stepping the left foot back, spinning the back heel down. Make sure the knee is right underneath the hip and the wrist is right underneath the shoulder. You want to open from the inner groin, so root into the inseam of the bottom kneecap, and then you'll start to lengthen your tailbone towards your back leg. Now you might want to stay here, especially if it's really shaky for you. The last couple breaths, you can take your other leg up. Okay, I'm going to speed up the process here. You get the gist. Lower your extended leg, lower your left hand, come back to that child's pose. So now we're going to do 2 exercises to increase mobility in your body should you have a stiff body. You're going to need a weight and maybe this block again, maybe. You can take the block, place it between your knees, so you still have your stabilizing muscles working, and then you're going to take a 5-pound, I have a 6-pound weight, but 5 pounds works too, or a water bottle. You're going to take the weight up, you're holding it with each hand, you're taking it up over your head, over your shoulders, and then on the inhale, you're going to lift your hips up, keep squeezing the block. And then very slowly start to take the weight over your head towards the floor. Now those of you who are really, really tight, right about now, you can't even take the weight to the floor. And that's really okay. You know that you are exactly where you need to be. You're going to try to take it to the floor as much as you can, or close to the floor. Wherever you're at, keep your hands on your weight. And then as you exhale again, I want you to start to lower 1 vertebra at a time down. Really stretching the tailbone towards the heels. And then you can take an inhale, gently release the grip on the block, and again, exhale, squeeze the block, lift your hips, and then take your arms back up to the start position. Now slowly take the weight over your head. And then again, exhale again, lower 1 vertebra down at a time. Really try to focus on each segment of your spine, gaining movement, lowering. Inhale, maybe find a little pelvic tilt, lifting the lower back up like a back bend. And then again, exhale, squeeze the block, lift your hips. Take the weight over your shoulders. And inhale, arms reaching slowly over your head. Exhale, lower down 1 vertebra at a time. Okay, let go of the grip on the block. Inhale. And squeeze the block. Exhale, lift your hips. Back to the start position. We'll do 1 more of these. Lowering the block. Inhale. The weight. Exhale. Squeeze the block. Lower down 1 vertebra at a time. Great. So that is 1 exercise you can do. I did this exercise without the weight, and all I did was focus on curling, which was a lot for me, curling my tailbone up and slowly peeling up one vertebra at a time, coming into bridge, and then slowly coming back down again, one vertebra at a time. And then curling up, tailbone lifts, you're kind of reversing the movement, and then slowly going back down. So it's kind of a play off of what you just did, but it's just a little bit more articulation. The next thing we'll do is really pretty simple. Hands will go to the tops of the thighs. You're going to push into your legs again like you did before, but we're going to do cat-cow on our back. So on the inhale, let go of the grip on the block a little bit and try to find cow shape. So that's when your belly drops and you look up when you're in all fours. And then as you exhale, squeeze the block, and I want you to try to hug your stomach muscles into the floor. So you're trying to press your lower back into the ground. And then again, inhale, release that, and just lift a little bit. Lower back off the floor. I don't know if you can see my back. And then as I exhale, squeeze the block, pressing my lower back into the mat. You can do this. I have done this up to 30 reps of this, back and forth. And this is also a great way to find those muscles in the first exercise, just to fire those stabilizing muscles while at the same time you're gaining mobility in your pelvis, which a lot of people, for a lot of different reasons, this area is just no man's land or frozen. Really not a lot of movement here. We also sit a lot, so there's not a lot of regular motion happening. And then the last one I'm going to take you into really quickly was one we did in the video with the block underneath the sacrum. We're going to take the legs up towards the ceiling. This one is done once you're really out of pain. You're going to start small, just little circles, drawing little circles with your legs, getting a little bit of momentum. Note when the stomach muscles want to poof out. You want to activate your transverse abdominis muscles, which is the deepest layer of your core to support your back. So you're going to try to hug those stomach muscles back towards the floor while you're moving your legs. Your hands can stay on your stomach so you can continue to train those muscles to work. And I like to do 10 in one direction and then 10 in the other. If you feel a lot of clicking or popping in your joints, you definitely want to play with turning the toes out, maybe, or bringing the toes back in, or maybe taking the circles smaller. So you want to play with the range and with the direction of the thigh bones and the hip sockets, because that continuous clicking is actually not a good thing. So I think you got the gist. And then our legs are back up the way they were in that restorative posture. You're going to bend your knees. And you can slowly lower, one foot down at a time, lift your hips, take your block out, and remember this, because you're wanting to do more mobility stuff, every time you lift, try to lower down one vertebra at a time. Before getting yourself back up again, really important, take a moment, place your hands on your body, give your body a thank you. Just breathe with your body. Let your body know you're not checking out. Your brain isn't abandoning the body while it's healing. The messages you send your body are so important. To come out of this again, you're going to roll off to one side and gently press yourself all the way up to sit. And hopefully it gets easier and easier the more that you show up on your mat, the more that you do this. If you have any questions, please email me at raqueljordanyoga@gmail.com. So that's Raquel, RAQUEL, Jordan, JORDAN, yoga, YOGA.com, or, oh, sorry, not .com, that's the website, at gmail.com. All of this is going to be in the email. I hope this has been helpful. I'm really rooting for you guys to continue with your practice, and if you have lower back issues, not to give up on yourself, but to get curious about them and work with your body. It's the only way you're going to feel better. All right, I think that's it. I have a ton of information for you going along with this video. Let me know your thoughts, and I really hope to do more of these videos. So if you have any questions or things you're curious about that you'd like for me to, and people that you'd like for me to interview, or things you'd like for me to explore, send that my way as well. All right, have a great rest of your day wherever you are.